Thank you for the introduction. I'm honored to be here and to be the final speaker. I know it's been a long, full 2 days, and I'm really happy to see that everybody's still here. And I'm going to talk about IPv4 runout and two of the consequences of it, being transfers and investigations. But first, my name, Anje Roosjen. I work for the registration services team. I really like my job. My daily work is dealing with requests from members, transfers requests, IPv4, IPv6 requests, and also doing the assisted registry check. So, IPv4 runout, we have called it already a few times, and every time it sounded really scary, but then it didn't really run out. So we called it many names, and we have, for instance, called it depletion. We have called it exhaustion. We've called it runout. So what does it mean, all these names? It means that it goes through phases. And I will tell you a little bit based on this timeline. So, in 2011, IANA ran out of IPv4. This was the moment when they gave the final /8 to the RARs. The RIPE NCC is one of the 5 RARs. And that was the block that started with 185. But imagine at that time, the RIPE NCC still had 75 million of IPs in the pool. Fast forward, 15 September 2012, and that was the moment that that 75 million of IPs, that pool was empty, and we called it exhaustion. And that was the moment when we said we need to slow it down, because before you could just submit a request and say how much IPs do you need, and this was going way too fast. So the final /8, we're going to slow it down, and we're going to only allow a /22 per member. Well, that lasted quite a bit longer than the previous /8, but I guess most of you can remember the email that you got last year in April 2018, saying like we run out because the last /8 was depleted. And what we are doing now is allocating to members /22 still, but it's not from that 185 block. It's from a different, it's a recycled space. So it's address space that has been with the previous holder. It's come back to us. It's still a big pool, and we're allocating from that. But the moment is coming that that final /22 for a member is no longer an option. And that's when we will call it run out. And this is a really special time also for me to be presenting on this, because this is really happening now. This is live. We can see every day the numbers go down. So you must wonder, when is this moment? And this is really hard to say, but I can guarantee you that if you are an existing member and you haven't requested your final /22, so you're already a member, you don't have to go through application process, you don't have to worry that much, but I would suggest that tonight you submit your request. However, if you are thinking tonight, like membership of the NCC, maybe that's something for me, then it's probably really too late. You can still apply, but then something else will happen to your request. So what does this look like? And I really think that in the first talk of Axel, we saw the same graph. And basically, it's showing the mark here, where the last /8 ran out. Now we're in this big red zone, which is ending all the way over there, September 19. As you can see, it's going down. And also, we have this yellow layer on top of it, reserved space. And I will tell you a little bit about that in a bit. But this is going down. We're talking about approximately 1.2 million of IPv4 addresses, or an equivalent of 1,200 /22s. Before I talk about how we deal with those last bits of IPv4, I made this slide to show you a little bit of what's happening in this region. So a few countries on the bottom. Blue bars are the number of LARs. Red bars are the number of final /22 IPv4 allocations. So this shows two things. It shows that Ukraine is, together with the Czech Republic and Poland, are the biggest players in this region. And what's interesting, if you see that the red bar is a little bit lower than the blue bar, this in theory could mean that there are LARs in this region that have not requested their final /22 yet. And if I look at this, it's roughly 2/3 of the countries. But I mean, there's a lot of LARs, small number of LARs, so it doesn't really say that much. But again, if you want to request it, this is the time. So now what? That last bit of IPv4, because we also have some address space that comes back to us, and we don't want to hold on to it, but we need to do something with it. So I'll tell you about our procedures in this last phase of runout, and what you can expect. A current allocation process. As I said, 1,200/22s left in the pool. And we're giving to members from this space, and this is going really fast. At this moment, we are still able to give to members a contiguous /22 block. That means that the numbers are adjacent, so it's not crumbs. Once we finish that, we are going to do something magic, and we're going to combine blocks. So we have /24s, /23s, and we're going to combine them. So 2 /23s will equal 1 /22, and members will get that, or 4 /24s. And once that is over, once that is finished, then we can't call it other than actual run out. We have the waiting list. I'll talk about it later. So you remember the yellow bar in the graph, the reserved IPv4 space. I just want to explain a bit what that is, because approximately 1 million of IPv4 addresses are in there. So it's a /13 of reserved address space. This 1 million of reserved address space. It's a /13 of temporary assignments for events, conferences like this one, experiments, research. That's reserved space. Then we have IPv4 dust, which sounds really exciting, but actually it's very small prefixes, less than a /24, so they're kind of, we can't really hand them out to members because they will be filtered out. The current policy says that we keep them with us, and then we wait until the magic happens and the number next to it comes. But in theory, that is very unlikely to happen, so it's just sitting there. Then we have a /16 reserved for the internet exchange points, because we consider the internet exchange points a very important part of the internet infrastructure. So we want to make sure that the internet exchange points can have that /24 of IPv4 space. This /16 will last approximately 4 to 5 years for IXPs at the current rate of consumption. Then there is the /16 of unforeseen circumstances pool, which, as it says, is unforeseen. It's not really more clearly defined. Now, there is a policy proposal which proposes that this /16 will be added to the 16 for the IXPs, making it a double pool of /15, so the IXPs will have at least 10 years of IPv4. And the proposal also includes the IPv4 dust, because IXPs is the place where this crumbs can function. But this is still a proposal. And then another 500,000 is quarantine space, which brings me to my next slide. So there's always addresses that come back to the RIPE NCC because members decide that they don't need them anymore. That's a really rare case. But other cases are that a member gets closed or there's a bankruptcy, and these addresses come back to us. And this happens now, and this will continue even after runout. And to give you just an idea of what we're talking about, if we look at 2019 so far, it's an equivalent. I put it in /24s because afterwards I'll tell you about the waiting list. It's 1,703 /24s that come back to us. So the address space, we don't want to keep it in our pool. Well, we want to keep it in our pool for quarantine, but after 6 months, we should hand it out to members, right? So imagine in like a few weeks, we will have, now let me say like in a matter of weeks before the end of the year, we will have that run out moment where we cannot give members an equivalent of a /22 anymore. Members that join can go to the waiting list, and then if blocks come back 6 months in quarantine, we can still give them a /22 or assembled blocks. And this is supported by the IPv4 policy. It was decided that the new size should be a /24 to allow more people to have access to this. And of course, if we're going to slow this down, also we're not going to give it to LARs that already have IPv4 from the RIPE NCC, so only if you did not get a block. So IPv4 runout means that IPv4 is getting scarce. And if a product gets scarce, it's inevitable that there will be a market and people will start trading that, and we see that. Also, on the other hand, I mean, if you need more IPv4 and you can't come to us anymore, then you need to get it from someone else, and you want to have the holdership in the database, so transfers are inevitable. So the RIPE community in 2012 responded to this because they realized that, on the one hand, that trading is inevitable, and also, I mean, if people start using each other's IPs and the holdership information gets all messed up, that's not a thing that we want either. So priority is always with the accuracy of the registry. So transfers are allowed since 2012. And this is transfers for IPv4, IPv6, AS numbers. And there is a 24-month holding period only for the scarce resources. So that's IPv4 and 16-bit AS numbers. So this graph is to show that we see an increase in transfers over time. This slide shows it from the beginning of the transfer policy. It's slowly growing. We're looking here at, in red, the number of transfers. So this is the prefixes. It can be a really big prefix or a small prefix. And in blue, to compensate for that lack of information, the total number of transferred IPs. So as you can see, there's a steady growth, and we're expecting this growth to continue because of after runout transfers will be happening much more. What also stands out is that it goes into hops, and that is near the end of the year, members always transfer their, if they want to transfer, the end of the year is the best time, because then you avoid paying the membership for the next year. So what does IPv4 transfer look like in this region? So this is the number of IPv4 addresses transferred in this region. What immediately stands out, and also what refers back to Alex's talk earlier, is that Ukraine has a high number of transfers. And as you can see also, domestic transfers that don't leave the country are really big, but also there is a lot of IPv4 transfers going out of the country. And what also stood out is that Moldavia has a lot of IPs coming into the country. So another consequence of IPv4 becoming scarce is that we do see people that want to bypass the rules to get their hands on IPv4 blocks. And as the RIPE NCC, with due diligence, we had to respond to that. So I want to tell you a little bit, and Maxime also told you a bit about it, so I can go a little bit faster. But this is a consequence also of IPv4 runout, and very important for you to know. So, investigations. We basically, at registration services, we have three common situations when it comes to investigations. And I do want to emphasize that this is a minority of the cases. Based on the numbers of last year, this was 1% of our members finding themselves in an investigation. And if you find yourself in an investigation, this doesn't mean that automatically there will be consequences. A lot of these cases can be solved. We talk to the people, we find out the confusion, and the case is closed. But basically, there are three situations. One of them is that members provide us with untruthful and misleading information. This can be fake documents. I'm talking about fake ID cards, passports, registration papers, transfer agreements, falsified signatures, contracts with people that aren't even aware that they signed a contract that had nothing to do with us. And these are serious situations. We investigate this. We need to find out what happened here and act upon it. Another case is hijacks. This was also touched upon earlier. LAR portals can get hijacked, either because of the corner case that we heard about. People are very creative. And also, if you use a Hotmail account and it gets hijacked, people can just go in and change everything. And if you don't have your notifiers switched on, then these things can happen. So it happens on the level of LAR accounts, but it also happens on the level of IP blocks in the RIPE database. And we see that these legacy space blocks with information that hasn't been updated for a long time, these are very vulnerable targets. And then there's the case of the disputed transfers, where unauthorized people got access to the account and they signed off, or everything was manipulated and the documents don't make sense, but it looked all really good, and then people can come back afterwards and tell us this is not true and present us with different information. So these are the situations, the common situations, but we see a lot of other stuff coming, so everything is treated on a case-by-case basis. To give you some numbers, what we're talking about, as I said, just 1% of the membership is even involved in this, and it doesn't always lead to actions. So as you can see, the number is going up, and 2019 is a total of 9 months of work, so it still looks like we're not on our way down yet. And you must be thinking okay, this investigation, what can it result in? What are the consequences of these behaviors? So the lightest version is the due diligence reminder. This is for minor infringements, and we do our investigation, we conclude it, and we give you a due diligence reminder. This is be careful, we've seen this, and we expect different behavior in the future. Then if that doesn't work, not necessarily in this order because we can skip, it's not like a 3-step model, but official warning is for contractual violations, so this is much more serious. Official warning, then we expect something completely clean afterwards. And then membership closure. This is a very tough version, but some cases it is justified. But I assure you that if this is what we're going to do, there's a lengthy process of evaluation. It goes through several layers of management, and you will know what's happening. But it does happen. So what you must all be thinking, what can I do to protect myself? And Maxime already gave me a head start, but go through it quickly. Very important to keep your account safe. Only authorized people in your account. Make sure if somebody leaves your country, especially when there was a kind of an argument going, or somebody's not very happy to leave your country, your company, make sure that they don't have access to the portal, but also remove them from database objects. And keep company information up to date. Tell us about changes. If you're going through a merger, tell us while it's happening, tell us like in the month after, don't wait 2 years to tell us. And then very importantly, also, if you are an LAR and you're also sponsoring end users, then you take the responsibility for those people, for the end users. You're a local internet registry, you do your checks for your end users. So if you get a request for an end user to be the sponsor of an AS number or IPv6 block, think again, like, does this request make sense? Is the person requesting this, is this a real person? Maybe it's a good thing to have some checks in place, like make a phone call, make them come to your office if that's possible. And this is not only for sponsored end users, but this is also at the level of assignments, right? If you create an assignment for a client, then you are the one registering the data in the database. But we do expect you to have some kind of account overview of who are these people. We don't have to know. We only see the public information in the RIPE database, but we do expect you that there are contractual agreements in place for these assignments with your clients. So if you do these things, and if you provide us with truthful information, and then this is what you can do. So where is this all going? To the end of my presentation. So this is a new paradigm for IPv4. Because of runout, we're coming from an era where there was enough IPv4 to, like, where there's a very limited pool of IPv4. And transfers, before 2012, IPv4 addresses were just numbers. It didn't mean anything. We gave out big blocks and we're not really thinking about the consequences, because that's all, like, it sounded infinite. But now, it's a tradable asset. It has a value. And for investigations, we came from a model that was heavily based on trust. But because of the bad actors and the increase in the investigations, we can see that we should hold on to due diligence checks and do those checks to protect the registry, but also to protect the honest people that also are members. So what does this mean for the RIPE NCC? Well, we try best to manage runout of IPv4. We're going to facilitate the increase in IPv4 transfers that we're expecting after runout. We need to find a balance between trust on the one side, the due diligence on the other side, but also not to become these bureaucrats and drag on cases and drag on. I mean, this is our individual cases. There are people on the other side, so we respond to that in the most efficient way. And this talk is about IPv4 runout, so promote IPv6. What does this mean for you? If you want more IPv4, let's say from January next year, transfer is the way to go. Regarding your LIR portal, keep your information up to date, tell us in time. For your end users and your clients, apply this know your customer. This comes from the financial, from the banking world to prevent money laundering. Just use these principles. These are good if you're thinking like, what should I do? What kind of checks? Just Google know your customers and you'll see what kind of checklist you can do. Make sure you always provide us with truthful and accurate information. If you're not sure, just tell us. As said, if you don't speak English, just try and write it in your own language. We'll find out. And lastly, I couldn't stop myself, but a mindset from IPv4 to IPv6 people. Because if we are trying to extend the lifespan of IPv4, we see very creative solutions like the carrier-grade NAT, and finding another small piece, like a prefix of IPv4, and using that very creatively. I mean, in the end, it is like this quote from 1969, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. And instead, we should move on and look at the long-term solution for this, and that is IPv6. And not only for your own company and for your own investment, because the internet is a community, and we need this as a community to stay connected, right? So really, let's move on, and let's do this in the most efficient way, and this is really the time to do it. Thank you all for listening to my talk. I'm ready for Betania.